Two incomes are widely seen as a financial advantage. More money coming in should mean more stability, more safety, and more options. This assumption is intuitive but incomplete. In reality, relying on two incomes often makes households more financially fragile, not more secure. The issue is not how much money is earned, but how financial stability is structured. The common situation looks stable on the surface. Two full-time salaries, a combined income above the national average, predictable monthly cash flow, a mortgage that fits the budget, two cars, childcare costs, insurance, subscriptions, automatic investments. Everything works as long as both incomes continue without interruption. This condition is rarely questioned. The mistake lies in confusing income level with financial resilience. When a household builds its entire cost structure around the assumption that two incomes are always present, it creates a single point of failure. The household is not diversified, it is concentrated. If one income is disrupted, the entire system is affected immediately. This fragility is not theoretical. Consider a household earning $120,000 combined, split evenly between two earners. Fixed monthly expenses, housing, transportation, insurance, debt payments often consume 60 to 70% of net income. Remember, these costs were approved and accepted because two paychecks made them feel affordable. If one income disappears, expenses do not fall by 50%. They remain largely unchanged. What was once manageable becomes unsustainable almost overnight. Many families believe emergency saving solve this problem. In practice, they rarely do. A typical emergency fund covers 3 to 6 months of expenses. That buffer assumes a short disruption. It does not account for long job searches, health-related absences, career transitions, or reduced earning capacity. When the household structure requires two incomes permanently, savings are a temporary delay, not a solution. Another overlooked factor is cost amplification. Dual-income households often outsource time, childcare, prepared food, cleaning services, commuting costs, convenience expenses. These are rational choices when time is scarce and income is high, but they lock the household into a higher baseline cost structure. If one income disappears, reversing these costs is slow and often incomplete. The fragility becomes visible in numbers. A household that needs $7,000 per month to function comfortably with two incomes may still need $5,500, $6,000 after one income is lost. The gap is not proportional. The system was never designed to operate on a single income. Despite this, many people believe they are doing everything right. They budget, they invest, they avoid obvious mistakes. What they overlook is that their financial system has no redundancy. Two incomes feel like diversification, but function like dependency. Both are required. Neither is optional. The consequences unfold gradually. In the first years, nothing seems wrong. Cash flow is positive, investments grow, lifestyle feels earned and justified. The fragility only becomes apparent when conditions change, and by then, the cost structure is already fixed. This is why two incomes often increase financial risk instead of reducing it. They allow higher commitments without building proportional resilience. They mask structural weakness with short-term comfort. The problem is not dual-income households themselves. The problem is designing a financial life that only works if nothing goes wrong. In the next part, we'll examine why this structure has become so common, how behavior and incentives reinforce it, and why standard financial advice often fails to address the real risk. To understand why two incomes increase financial fragility, it's necessary to look beyond income totals and examine structure, behavior, and system design. The issue is not dual income itself, but how households adapt their financial lives once two paychecks become normal. The first structural cause is income coupling. In many households, expenses are not divided between two incomes. They are built on the assumption that both are always present. Housing is the clearest example. Mortgage approvals are based on combined income. A home that would be risky on one salary becomes affordable on two. The same logic applies to cars, insurance packages, private schools, and long-term contracts. Over time, the household's entire cost structure becomes locked to a dual income requirement. Behavior reinforces this structure. When cash flow is strong, spending decisions are framed as reasonable upgrades rather than risks. More space, better location, shorter commute, higher quality services. Each choice makes sense in isolation. Collectively, they raise the household's minimum required income. This process is gradual, which is why it often goes unnoticed. Consider a practical scenario. A household earns $140,000 combined. They purchase a home with monthly housing costs of $3,500, two cars costing $200 combined, childcare at $2,000, and fixed living expenses of $2,300. Total monthly needs $9,000. With two incomes, this feels controlled. If one income drops, even temporarily, the remaining income might cover $5,000 or $6,000. The gap is immediate and severe. Downsizing housing or eliminating childcare is not possible on short notice. The system fails because it was never designed to operate under stress. The second cause is time substitution behavior. Dual income households often trade money for time. Childcare, convenience food, delivery services, outsourcing tasks. This increases fixed and semi-fixed expenses. These costs are rational responses to limited time, but they harden the expense base. When income drops, reversing them requires time, energy, and flexibility, precisely what is least available during a crisis. The third issue is the absence of a redundancy-based system. In resilient systems, one component can fail without collapsing the whole structure. Most dual income households lack this. They don't ask whether the household can function on one income, even temporarily. They assume continuity instead of designing for disruption. Standard financial advice often misses this point. Common recommendations include budgeting, emergency funds, and diversification through investing. These tools are useful but incomplete. A budget doesn't change structural dependency. An emergency fund delays failure but doesn't prevent it. Investments are long-term assets and often ill-suited for covering short-term income loss without penalty. Another popular suggestion is just increase savings, but higher savings do not solve a cost structure problem. If a household requires two incomes to function, savings are consumed faster than expected during disruptions. The system drains itself. What's missing from standard advice is stress testing. Most households never model what happens if one income disappears for 6 or 12 months. They plan for continuity, not disruption. As a result, they optimize for comfort instead of resilience. This is why dual income fragility persists even among financially responsible people. The problem is not irresponsibility. It is system design without failure tolerance. Two incomes create the illusion of safety while quietly removing margin for error. In the next part, we'll identify the most common mistakes this structure leads to and examine their long-term consequences over 5, 10, and 20 years. The fragility of dual income households is not caused by bad luck. It is the result of a set of recurring decisions that seem reasonable in the short term but produce predictable outcomes over time. These are not mistakes of income level, but of structure and choice. Mistake 1. Treating two incomes as diversification. Many households believe that having two earners reduces risk. In practice, it often does the opposite. Both incomes are usually exposed to similar risks: the same economic cycle, the same geographic job market, the same family obligations. When expenses require both incomes, the household has no fallback. This is concentration, not diversification. The long-term effect becomes visible over time. After 5 years, the household appears stable, but its fixed costs are fully optimized for two incomes. After 10 years, flexibility is minimal. Changing jobs, reducing hours, or taking career breaks becomes financially dangerous. After 20 years, the household may have earned a high total income, but lacks real optionality. Decisions are constrained by obligations. Mistake 2, approving long-term commitments at peak income. Mortgages, private schooling, Car loans and lifestyle upgrades are often locked in during periods of maximum earning capacity. These commitments assume continuity. If one income drops, the costs remain. A simple projection illustrates this. A household earning $150,000 commits to fixed annual costs of $90,000. If one income disappears and total income falls to $75,000, costs cannot adjust proportionally. Even with savings, the gap forces asset sales, debt, or stress-driven decisions. Over 10-20 years, this pattern erodes net worth more than a single lower income but flexible structure would. Mistake 3, using savings as a substitute for resilience. Emergency funds are often treated as a solution. In reality, they are a buffer, not a fix. A household with $40,000 in savings and $8,000 monthly expenses has a 5-month runway. That sounds sufficient until a job loss lasts longer or coincides with health issues or market downturns. After 5 years, savings may appear adequate. After 10 years, repeated disruptions consume capital meant for growth. After 20 years, the opportunity cost is clear. Savings were repeatedly used to maintain an unsustainable structure instead of building long-term independence. Mistake 4, assuming higher future income will solve structural issues. Many households postpone structural changes, expecting raises, promotions, or career growth. In reality, expenses tend to rise alongside income. The dependency remains. The issue is not income growth. It is that the system scales obligations faster than resilience. Two households can earn the same lifetime income and end in very different positions. One builds a structure that works on one income. The other requires two indefinitely. Over 20 years, the first accumulates flexibility and options. The second accumulates pressure. Mistake 5, ignoring stress scenarios. Most financial plans assume stability. Few households model 6 to 12 months on one income. Without this stress test, decisions are made blindly. The consequences are delayed, but unavoidable. The key insight is this. The problem is not that two incomes are earned, but that both are required. Income does not create security by itself. Structure does. When decisions lock a household into permanent dependence on two paychecks, risk increases, even as income rises. In the next part, we'll look at a practical alternative: how to design a financial system where two incomes add strength instead of fragility, and how the mechanics of that system actually work. The solution is not to avoid dual income households, but to remove dependency on both incomes for basic stability. Two incomes should increase resilience, not be a requirement for survival. This shift is achieved through system design, not through higher returns, better budgeting apps, or more aggressive investing. The core principle is simple. Design the household to function on one income and use the second income to build margin. Step 1. Define a one-income baseline. The first step is to calculate the minimum monthly cost structure that allows the household to function without stress on a single income. This includes housing, food, insurance, transportation, and basic services. It excludes discretionary upgrades. This baseline is not theoretical, it is the operational floor. For example, if one income reliably provides $500 per month after tax, the household should aim to cover essential costs within that amount. This may require smaller housing, fewer fixed commitments, or lower recurring expenses. The goal is not austerity, but failure tolerance. Step 2. Separate survival from optimization. Once the baseline is defined, all expenses above it are treated as optional or scalable. Childcare, lifestyle upgrades, travel, and higher-end services should be funded primarily from the second income. This creates a natural buffer. If the second income disappears, the system contracts without collapsing. Step 3. Allocate the second income strategically. The second income should not disappear into general spending. It should be deliberately assigned to 3 areas: building extended cash reserves beyond standard emergency funds, accelerating long-term investments, reducing fixed obligations such as debt. This allocation ensures that the second income increases future flexibility rather than current dependency. Step 4. Stress test the system annually. Once per year, the household should run a simple scenario. What happens if one income stops for 6 months? If the answer involves selling assets or accumulating debt, the system is not resilient yet. Adjustments are made structurally, not emotionally. Step 5. Automate decisions, not assumptions. Automation is useful when it supports structure. Savings, investments, and debt reduction tied to the second income should be automated. Fixed commitments should never assume permanent dual income. This prevents silent lifestyle creep. Why is this approach stable rather than risky? Because it does not rely on forecasts. It does not assume continuous employment, market performance, or perfect health. It relies on control, not prediction. The system absorbs shocks instead of amplifying them. A comparison clarifies the difference. Two households earn $160,000. Household A structures life around both incomes. Household B structures life around one and uses the second for margin. After 10 years, household B has lower stress, higher optionality, and comparable or greater net worth, even if total spending was lower. The difference is not income, it is design. This solution is not about sacrificing quality of life. It is about choosing which income pays for stability and which pays for growth. When this distinction is clear, two incomes become a strength instead of a liability. In the final part, we'll consolidate this system into a clear framework, show what changes over 1, 5, and 10 years, and outline exactly what to do next. When all parts are put together, the pattern becomes clear. Two incomes do not create security by default. Structure does. Income is a resource. Resilience is a design choice. Households become financially fragile when their system assumes that both incomes must always exist. The final structure can be summarized in 4 practical layers. First, define the survival layer. The household must clearly separate what is required from what is optional. Housing, food, insurance, transportation, and basic services belong to the survival layer. This layer must be supportable by one reliable income. If it is not, the system is fragile by definition. This is not about cutting everything down. It is about setting a non-negotiable operating floor. Second, assign the second income a purpose. The second income should never be absorbed by general spending. It must be intentionally allocated. Its role is to build margin, extended cash reserves, accelerated investing, and reduction of long-term obligations. When the second income has a defined function, it increases flexibility instead of dependency. Third, build rules instead of expectations. The system should not rely on assumptions like continuous employment or uninterrupted health. Instead, it relies on rules. Fixed commitments are approved only if they work on one income. Lifestyle upgrades are reversible. Savings and investments tied to the second income are automated. Rules reduce decision pressure and prevent silent risk accumulation. Fourth, test the system regularly. Once a year, the household runs a simple scenario. One income disappears for 6 months. The question is not emotional, it is mechanical. Does the system adjust without debt, asset sales, or panic? If not, changes are structural, not reactive. What changes over time? After 1 year, clarity increases, cash flow is understood, dependencies are visible, decisions become intentional rather than reactive. After 5 years, resilience compounds. Extended reserves exist. Fixed costs are controlled. Career choices feel less constrained. After 10 years, optionality emerges. One income becomes sufficient by design. The second income accelerates wealth, not stability. The household gains freedom of timing, not just higher net worth. The immediate action steps are straightforward. Calculate essential monthly expenses. Compare them to the more reliable of the two incomes. Freeze new fixed commitments that require two incomes. Redirect the second income toward margin, not lifestyle. Review the structure annually. The key insight is this: financial strength is not measured by how much comes in, but by how little is required to function. Two incomes can be an advantage, but only if one of them is optional. This approach does not promise wealth or eliminate uncertainty. It does something more valuable. It reduces dependency. And over time, reduced dependency becomes the foundation for real financial flexibility.